Why do I consider Laura Bush the best First Lady of the United States of the 21st century? That's quite a mouthful. The best U.S. First Lady of the 21st century. The reason for that, when you compare her to Michelle and Melania and then Jill and then Melania again, is that there was a certain apolitical feature that she had, which I really appreciated. I am not a fan of her husband at all. I think the younger Bush is probably, if not the worst U.S. president ever, then certainly the worst one since Hoover. He dwarfs the mediocrity of any of his predecessors and successors by a country mile. That being said, what I enjoy so much about his wife is that many of the goals she initiated or took part in during her tenure are largely apolitical. Literacy is very important. She worked as a librarian, but it's extremely significant that people know how to read regularly, even if they're not reading a book every day. Something as minor as, for example, a news article can go a long way in terms of just constantly giving a person's stuff to read and retain and analyze it and understand what they're reading. Because I have said before that we've there've been a lot of like statistics in more modern times of just how people are not reading, and even a lot of adults are struggling with reading, and it has little to do with intelligence or anything like that. In our modern society, people are not really encouraged to actually read anything. Many times when there's a new book that comes out, for example, by some author, I've seen it where on just, and this is not some kind of analytical thing, it's just what I've observed. I see a lot of people like, oh man, this book was so great. I didn't read it. I listened to the audiobook while I was driving, and it's like, that's cool. You're allowed to do that, but are you really going to tell me that hearing it is the same as actually paying attention to what's in front of you, like reading what this person has written out, as opposed to just hearing someone else read it? So yeah, that attention and focus on literacy is a big part of my interest in her. Even if I'm not a fan of her husband, that's not new. First ladies tend to be more popular than their husbands. Um, but I really like Laura. I think she was, is rather, but as first lady was very classy, focused on an issue that I think every single person in the country should be behind. Um, like I said, literacy, reading, very important. One of the most essential things. I don't necessarily think, for example, Michelle Obama's initiative with eating healthier was bad, right? There are a lot of younger people that get mad about, oh, they took out the unhealthy things that were at school. That's whatever. I think as the older people get, they're going to appreciate just an attempt to be healthier. But literacy is really one of those issues, like along with fighting cancer, that everyone should be behind. Uh, I mean, I can't mention how many relatives and people I've seen just in real life where they get a piece of paper in front of them and it's about a paragraph long. Hey, can you read this to me? I don't understand. Can you read this to me? And sometimes it's an older person who, again, in their less envisioned and later years, is not able to fully comprehend what's in front of them, or they struggle a little bit with seeing things. But I've seen people adults, 30s, 40s, 50s, who cannot read that well, or they get confused by some of the larger words. And I think the more a person reads, whether it be, again, a book, a news article, it plays into their ability to understand what's in front of them. And I should say, she has probably one of the most, I don't want to say inspiring stories, but she's definitely interesting in the standpoint of, like, this regular girl from Texas that accidentally kills one of her classmates, or someone that she knows, and uh, overcomes that grief to go to school, become one of the one of the few first ladies, right, like with her with a pretty substantial education. Uh, and then, of course, she marries into wealth, and even in, being mostly the wife of a prominent politician, as first lady of Texas and then U.S. first lady, she still promotes her ideal of literacy, which is stemming from her career as a librarian. So it's in a lot of ways she's kind of like that blend of the sort of, you don't need a man type of position, just more of like an independent woman who kind of like merges her ambitions with her husband's, but still never loses sight of what she cares most about. I should also say of any of the first couples after Bush 41 and Barbara, the younger Bushes are probably the last one I really believe like are in love, to where they still do everything together. They're always with each other, and I guess again, this I speak mostly from my own experiences. Laura is the first lady that I have memories of while she was in office, because she left when I was about 11. But when I look at or either 11 or 12, but when I look at a lot of the couples after, again, those two, there's a lot of it is careerism. A lot of it is maybe they were in love at a time, but not anymore. And I never felt that way. Even if I am not a fan of Bush 43, I like his dad, I like his wife, I like his mother. I just don't like him. Even as someone who's not a fan of him, I can still say, yeah, it looks like his wife is as in love with him as before, and vice versa. And as someone who's really just kind of accepted the fact that they will always be alone, I really treasure that kind of infatuation, that like the idea of meeting someone and marrying them, and then like having a family, and uh, going on to become this like nationally prominent couple, and achieve all your dreams and forward your ideals together. That's the kind of relationship that I desired when I was younger, and to some extent still do, even if I've like closed the book on that being a possible thing that could happen. And that's why it's so resonant for me whenever I see that in the run, because politics, especially once you start getting to the last 20, 30 years with all these different corporations telling politicians what to do, like, it's so much of it is manufactured, scripted. And that's what I respect so much about these affairs. When I say affairs, I mean like just the love of a president and his wife, to where whether the cameras are rolling, whether they're at home, just these two people that really can't seem to get enough of each other. You see that with the Carters, the Reagans, and with both sets of Bushes. And I really think there's a possibility, I'm not going to say I have some crystal ball here, that you might not see that again in the White House. You might feasibly never see a couple in love with each other, like genuinely still in love with each other from when they first married, all the way up until one of the man becomes president for a long time. I really think that. But yeah, Laura is my favorite first lady of the 21st century. I don't think that's going to change. You could argue it's based on nostalgia. I like Michelle quite a bit as well, but not to the same extent. She's a really intelligent, beautiful woman, and I think she is a role model for anyone who wants to like forward very sufficient causes in terms of, again, literacy and just advocacy for people that live in other countries. I think there are a lot of things about her to admire, and hopefully with the channel I can sort of remind people and demonstrate some of that. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I'll give it my best tries. Thanks for listening.